You're welcome to the second series of Every Student is Excellent podcast, and I am glad you are here. So, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you're listening to us all around the globe. Every Student is Excellent is committed to bringing out the excellence in every student. The solution we provide is to ensure that all students are excellent. And today I want to welcome you. Last time we were here, we talked about the foundations for excellence. We looked at 7 major pillars that forms the depth of your foundation. We started with the right mindset, we looked at the right thinking and thoughts, we looked at the right plan and purpose, we looked at the right focus, we looked at the right strategy, we looked at the right connection and the right resources. Today I want to be zooming in on 2 of these, and we're going to be expounding it because it's important to understand what it means for you to be an excellent student or to be an excellent person. I told us last week that excellence is positioning yourself to work towards perfection. That is, whatever makes you continuously want to be perfect will eventually lead to you being excellent. And everybody have different means and drive to ensure that this comes to pass. Now, there are 3 questions I'll be using for us to start today's section. The question number 1 is, why will I be in the class or level I am if I am not worth it? Have you ever asked yourself that question? If I don't have the capacity to be where I am, I wouldn't have gotten here. You might be looking at yourself as a student that is struggling, but the truth is, there was an entrance examination, you passed it. There was a means to get that opportunity and it fell on your head. There was criteria and systems put in place to ensure that some people don't make it yet you made it. So the truth is not about you not worth it being in that class. Is if you have discovered that that class was made for you. Every level you find yourself was actually made specifically for you. There is nothing you are trying to do that cannot be referenced back to the fact that you earned it. Even in places where some people cheated their way through. I once used to do it. I was an excellent student, but there are times in which you forget things in the exam hall and you just whisper, oh boy, what's this? They now help me. Now, and a whisper from that student gives you an opportunity to remember everything you have read concerning the course and puts you in a pole position even to do better than the person that whispered to you. Because most times, even as intelligent students, all we need is a trigger. Everybody needs a trigger. So it's not about you not being qualified for the level of the class you are. It's about the fact that if you were not qualified, you wouldn't have been there in the first place. So take away the notion of non-qualification. It's not that you are not qualified. It's just that you have not owned up to the environment and you have not taken possession of it as your own. That's number 1 question answered. Number 2 question is, why would I be seated among the same students receiving the same lectures as my fellow students are receiving if I don't have the capacity to know them? You see, many students have said things like, I don't understand this thing and I cannot understand it and I'm finding it hard to understand it. Oh, is that true? The truth is, it's not a question of not understanding. The question starts with the mindset of thinking that you don't have the capacity to understand it. And must I tell you something? If you don't have the capacity to understand it, you wouldn't be in that class receiving the same lectures, and you wouldn't be in that class with other students that are receiving the same lectures. Now, in the university system, it's easy because once you fail, you have a carryover. A carryover means you get to repeat the course with people of lower level. Now, that doesn't mean that you don't have the capacity of people that initially passed the course. Your opportunity to repeat the course with guys of lower level shows that if those guys in the lower level can also pass it, it meant you can pass it. While we're growing up, there are many people who had this experience. Your elder brother 2 years older than you in the same class that you are, and he's in the same class that you are because he repeated. I saw a thing of shame. It wasn't a thing of shame, but some people right from a young age they actually feel shameful about it. But you see many brothers and many sisters in such kind of situations because the capacity to learn is embedded in every one of us. You have the ability to learn. In the last series, I talked about learning, relearning, and unlearning. In fact, you cannot learn if you haven't unlearned. And one of the things this second question poses to us to unlearn is to unlearn the belief system that we don't have the same capacity as every student in that class to learn the same thing. While I was in secondary school, I think later part of secondary school, there was a boy that was very, very intelligent. I don't think he ended up getting the best graduating student, because the best graduating student, they calculated it right from our year one, that is GS1. They calculated everything. My school was that diligent. So, but there was a guy that got almost the best in everything in our SS3. That guy, we discovered he was so intelligent. And many of us used to say, he doesn't read. But just like I studied the other guy in GS, I had to study this guy in my SS class. And I took notice of one thing. Many things used to be on my mind. I don't know why. But I was easily distracted. I can be listening to a lecture and then my mind wears off. But this boy gives his rapt attention to everything the teacher was saying. And because nobody can distract him during the period of learning, he was able to learn with excellence. So he gave himself to listening. And that's one problem many of us have. If you can fight the battle of distraction and you can listen more than you are ready to contribute or talk or interact with others, you would discover an increased intelligence in what you do. The last question before we zoom in today is, why will I not be separated to be singly taught and have to sit with every person if I am not blessed as them? Let me repeat it again. Why will I not be separated to be singly taught and have to sit with every other person if I am not as blessed as them? So, you may be thinking that you are not as blessed as other students, but why were you not separated? Why do you have to sit with them? It means that whatever blessing that is upon them is also upon you. In fact, when we receive students in 200 level and we want to teach them or we want to have orientation for them, we don't stand them up and say, hey, what did you get in your jam? You, what did you get in your jam? You, what did you get in your jam? Nobody is concerned about that. All we are concerned about, we see set of equal students with equal opportunities, the same kind of lecturers, having the same ability to do the same things that any other person can do. Students have complained about lecturers. Even me, some students complain about how I lecture. I might be slow at the initial part of the lectures, so they feel that, they can relate to this thing. But when we begin to get to the mid part of the section, towards the end, I become very fast, because in my own belief system, I have laid the foundation for you to be able to study. And the way I do my classes is such that whenever I am teaching you, I am also telling you how you should posture yourself to be excellent in my course. So I tell you how to read, I tell you how to study, I tell you what not to do. In fact, sometimes I even give hints about what you should read and study to exams. So when students ask me about AOC, area of concentration, I will tell them, I've already given you area of concentration. And it takes a student who have been listening from day one and who have been paying attention to be able to run at my speed when I increase speed and to be able to grab the points or the salient points I leave behind and the trails towards my exams. So any student who really does pay attention in class and is ready to study would eventually have an A in my exam, no matter how bad it is. So if you were qualified for this class, if every person in that class is receiving the same lectures from the same lecturers you are complaining about, and if you were not separated, it means that whatever is happening in that class can also happen to you. If there is a student in that class getting all A's, then you can get all A's. If there is somebody in that place having a good sight of vision to make it, then it can be you. So today, I'll be zooming in on the right plan and the right strategy. Foundations are important. Without foundations, our structures are faulty. In fact, in the book I like the most, it tells the story of two men. The two of them planned to build a house. One took the initiative of building his house upon the rock. Another took the initiative of building the house upon the sand. He that built his house upon the rock, dug the rock, broke the rock, and laid the blocks, and built his house. He that built his hands upon the sand did not dig anything. He just started laying on the sand. By the time they had similar challenges, It says the wind blew, the storms came, and the flood came. And it beats, it did not say it beats upon the house. That is, it hits it violently. And the house that was built upon the rock lasted and stood the test of all these three challenges. But the house that built upon the sand was destroyed by these three issues. So we have two people given the same resources, given the same environment, given the same circumstances. In our day and age, we say they were given the same school environment, given the same classroom conditions, given the same lecturers, given the same notes, given the same Wi-Fi, given the same library, given the same power supply. Everything was the same, but they chose to use it differently. It's not like the parable of the talent, where one had 5, one had 2, one had 1. No, everybody had equal things, equal amount of things. And what did they use it to do? They were to build, but first and foremost, the foundation was important. Your foundation is important. And the truth is, you might be asking, I had a wrong foundation in secondary school. I did not have lecturers for mathematics. I didn't have lecturers for physics. But why don't you rewrite those foundations now? Why can't you look at one of the students that had the good foundation? Let them help you to correct your bad foundation. Why don't you create every opportunity that you have been given to know how to walk your life through, even in these circumstances? So, if you're having the right plan, how does the right plan work? Number one, every institution has a plan. There is a time to resume and a time to be out of school. There is a time within the time to resume and the time to leave school in vacation. There is the time that is set for registration, time set for academic study, attending classes. There is a time in which there is quiz and test. There is a time in which there are exams. And there are times to wait for the results to come out. First and foremost, how do I plan myself? Number one, you have a school calendar. One thing I did before my 100 level, as I was preparing, because I wrote 2 JAMB. One JAMB while I was in SS3. I got 232, yes. I wanted to go to Obafemi Awolowo University. It did not work because my post-UTME I got 198. I had one of my mother's half-brother who was a professor at that time. He just told me, there's nothing I can do. Your child did not get 200. And that's how it ended. I couldn't get the admission. The next year, I decided to study. I read from October to January, 1 month per subject. I ate my textbooks. I didn't just eat my textbooks. After eating it, I would do my past questions. So 1 month for physics, 1 month for chemistry, 1 month for mathematics, 1 month for English. I did it with all dedication. 8 a.m. to 4 p.m., 8 a.m. to 4 p.m., 8 a.m. to 4 p.m. The only days I had to rest was Sunday. I did that for 4 months, Monday to Saturday, every day, going to the library. Now, as at that time, some of my other friends were attending JAMB lessons. I did not, because I felt I was going to be wasting my time. Being in a class where my brain is actually faster than what they are doing, because I already had the notion that I can read and pass. So and that was what I did. That is a plan on its own. And what did I do? As I couldn't make that effect, I told my parents, I said, if you had gotten me this textbook, I would have passed. So they gave me the money, I bought the textbooks, and I started reading. And that was what I read for the 4 months, with the plan of the 8 hours per day plan. So if I'm talking about an 8 hour daily plan of study, it's something I did. But once I did my second JAMB and I got 282, yes, 282, I wanted to make 300 and something. So I wanted a scholarship right from then, but I couldn't get it. So I got 282, and eventually I got an admission. I got 250 in post-UTME. I got an admission into the prestigious Federal University of Technology, Mina. By the time I was going to resume in Mina, I resumed like 2 weeks ahead of time. I had gotten all my course curriculums, and I had gone to buy past materials. So I started reading from that time. Everywhere was dry. Sometimes I was the only one in class. Students had not yet resumed. I started reading that early. And that trend did not stop. Even when I went home, after semesters, I read, preparing for the next semester. So, number one, the first plan you have to have is the plan to start early. How do you start early? Get the materials early. Get the past questions early. Know the kind of lecturers you'll be interacting with early. Let your seniors tell you what they go through early. So the plan for early starters. You are not supposed to resume school and you are coming after 5th week, coming after 6th week, what are you doing at home? When we're in school, there are many students that never went home for the 5 years. I'm not advocating for that, but that's the truth. I was telling my students this morning, I said, in my time through school, I read almost 40 to 60 books, and I donated the remaining ones to the library that I had a community with. So, books that were not my course, books that had to do with life, had to do with money, had to do with relationship, had to do with intellectual training, had to do with focus, had to do with understanding your direction and purpose, I read them. So you have to, and if you don't plan yourself, how will you do such? So ensuring that you have the right plan helps you to stay at par with whatever is coming. So the right plan creates the avenue for you to be able to do the things you need to do in the time you need to do it. So if peradventure you have discovered that you are resuming school in 2 weeks' time, what stops you from going to school a week earlier to familiarize yourself with whatever has been on ground? And once you get into the institution and your seniors are finishing with their exams, you should be able to collect the materials from them and begin to study them. Now, some persons might be listening to this and be saying that I've already started school. We are already maybe in the 8th week, 10th week. How do I look at my plan? The second plan the school environment gives you is the plan, what we call timetable. So, apart from the school calendar for the period, you have a timetable. That timetable helps you to know what time you'll be in class for lectures compulsorily, because it's compulsory that you be in lectures. There was a year we had in the place I work, we used commandants. There was a year we had a commandant, and the commandant was strict with students attending lectures and we as lecturers submitting 75% attendance. So if you don't have 75% attendance, you will not write exams. You won't believe it that some parents traveled all the way to beg for their unserious students that couldn't make 75% attendance. I have some people that are already spilling for the second year going, and the reason why they spilled was because they were unserious with class attendance. So timetables are compulsory and you must have them. It forms the basis of your planning. So when you look at your timetable, there is something else you look at, your personal timetable. So you have your class timetable, you have your personal timetable. That personal timetable helps you to know what is when you utilize the periods that are free on the compulsory timetable. Your personal timetable is the timetable that utilizes the free periods that are not in your compulsory timetable. So I tell students right from the university that it's easier to pass in the university system than in the secondary school. Why do I always say that? In secondary school, you have a fixed time from 7:30 or 8 o'clock to 2:30, some of us even extend to 4 p.m. And you repeat that cycle from Monday to Friday. Though it was in secondary school I learned to utilize my Saturdays and Sundays. So Saturday, most times after we do clean up and we eat in the morning, I sit in the class from 10 a.m. to 4 p.m. So most times we go to eat by 2, I go to the dining hall, take my food, then return back to class from 3 p.m. to 6, 7 p.m. when I have other engagements I go. Then we come back again by 10 p.m. to read. If you calculate this time very well, it's already over 8 hours. I started it from secondary school. You might be saying, oh, he's privileged, he started it early. But the truth is, you can also start yours now. That habit has not left me. You must realize that your ability to put these plans into concrete arrangement helps you, not just for you to be excellent academically, but even in other aspects of your life. For example, after you have traced the free spaces, there will be some free spaces during the day, and there will be some free spaces after some lectures. Maybe in a day, there are some days you have lectures from 8 to 5. You know, you are obviously tired. You can go to the hostel, eat your food, sleep from 5 to 7. Then from 7 p.m. to 12 midnight, you can read. Once you are feeling dizzy and you have already rested in the afternoon, so you should have the strength to read till 12 or 1. You go back to your hostel. After you go back to your hostel, you sleep and wake up the next day. Then the next thing after your personal timetable is your daily plan. You must have a daily plan. Your daily plan starts from when you wake up in the morning. So for example, I said it earlier that I wake up 4 a.m. every day. In fact, I don't wait for the prayer hour to be called in the morning. Anytime prayer hour is called before I wake up, even till today, even till this morning, they don't call prayer and I'm not awake. No matter how long I sleep, they don't call prayer. Or how late I sleep, they don't call prayer and I'm not awake. Any day they call prayer and I'm not awake, I fight with myself. So you have to be tough on yourself for life to give you the best it can. So having that timing is very important in your life. The timing is very, very necessary. So you have that to rotate with. You rotate the timing and you come up with things that you are able to do over time. So now the daily plan. You have, for example, 4 a.m. you wake up, 4:30 to 6. 4:30 to 5:30, maybe you pray, read your religious books. From 5:30, you study what you will read that day. So there should be a timetable that covers what you are going to read before you appear in class. Because you don't know the professor that will be like one of my professors in 200 level. The reason I couldn't make first class in my first semester 200 level was because I was coming late to class. So this man has 8 a.m. lectures for 1,500 engineering students, and the hall will be jammed, but yet he will give us quiz. Once he steps into the class by 8, he writes his quiz on the board. I didn't realize I was already failing until maybe the 7th week, when he said, all these quiz I am doing, that's what will form your test. I'd missed like 3 quizzes, and by the time the result was going to come out, I think I got a 68B. It was very painful. It's an unavoidable B. But why? Because of the lack of planning, accurate planning as it should, and inability to study before going to class. So I had to learn that the hard way. So you must have that plan. There must be a plan for you to rest, a plan for you to eat, a plan to cook. You must factor that into your daily plan. From Monday to the reason why I don't have a plan presently is because I'm not on a tedious study. Let's say that I am doing a study, let's say maybe a PhD or something. I would have a plan for my day because I must maybe be in the lab, being in one section or the other all through the day. There must be a plan that creates an avenue for me to rest during the day, a plan that creates an avenue for me to eat, a plan that creates an avenue where if it's a place for me to cook, I cook so that I eat. So you must realize that these plans are important. So have a plan. Have a plan. You cannot afford to live your day without planning, because if you live your day without planning, you will crash along the way. So the right planning is very important. Let me give this as a hint. If you are a good student and you are listening to this, don't plan people into your study hours. This is another reason why I lost the opportunity to graduate top of my class. When I was regaining my feet in 300 level, I got a first class semester again in 300 level first semester. Some brothers came to me and they said, please, you are part of this community, and we have these 2 ladies that we really want them to succeed, and we know you are intelligent. Please help us to teach them. As at that time, one was preparing for JAMB, but she had been with us because she did diploma. The second one was already a year 2 student that was struggling to even pass year 1 courses. One grave mistake I made was for them to always come to where I study anytime I study. And I've said it before, that I prefer studying during the day because I can harness much of my time during the day. So looking back now, what I should have done is read during the day, then make them to come at night, and I give them maybe about 2 hours of my time. But the reason I did that years back was because I noticed they didn't even know how to read. So we had to teach them how to read and how to, this is how you should do it, this is how you should do it. So as they began to read, and they began to get it, sometimes they will come to me and say, oh, I don't understand this, I don't understand this. And I needed to read. In fact, in my 300 level second semester, one of our dear professors then was always coming to class for automobile design or something. That's why I don't like automotive till today. Automobile design, though I teach automotive students. But it would bring about maybe 50 pages of materials. And before I could get to the next class, because of all these distractions I couldn't cover those things, and I was not prepared. By the day we were going to write tests, it was one of the courses I got a C, because I did not factor other people. I placed other people ahead of myself in my planning. So that's one of the things you have to be watchful of. Ensure that you don't give people your time for study as a time for them to come. In fact, I have a student currently, very dear student to me, and anytime I'm teaching her, she will be like, that me, I'm not like you. Me, if I'm tired, I'll just rest. But she used to say something very, very cogent, and I think it's very, very important for every student to learn. You are your first priority. Whatever is not you is not you. So your goal is you first. Others come second. So yes, you want to help people, you want to do things. For example, what I'm doing is to help as many people as possible. But the truth is, if I am helping you at the detriment of myself, I'm not wise. That's the summary. So having said that, planning is important. And if you need a personal section on planning, you can DM me. I can even screenshot some of my old, because I still have many of my parchments, many of my journals, where I have all my plans. In fact, I have a journal or some of my plans for like 20 years ago that I have it now, presently. So I still have them. So that's how important planning is. You look at your life, and in the next 1 year, 2 years, 3 years, and you will be able to tell yourself that, oh, I gave my all. And the reason why you did that is because you planned accurately. So the next foundation I want to also focus on is the foundation of the right strategy. The right strategy. I told the story earlier about how that I had already had a strategy to read. After class, I would just put my head on the table, rest a little, and when I'm not tired, I wake up, then I study. That strategy worked for me until when I began to discover that people used to say TDB, 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 TDB. So I wanted to know, what is this TDB? Because I've not been used to a TDB. Highest I've learned all my life till then was that I read during the day and read from maybe 7:30 to 10 p.m. at night. So, and through this, I was able to come up with different things, different opportunities, different ideas, different things that people are coming up with. So your strategy is very important. And what is that strategy? What is that strategy? The strategy of ensuring that you create a plan for yourself that works for you. Most times people don't realize that what is working for my program may not work for me. So I said about how that some persons go for TDB and I just fix myself to during the day. Till today, I still find it easier to walk into the night than to work at night. So what do I mean? Walking into the night. So I've walked all through the day, rested a little, then start work maybe around 6 p.m. and end by 1 a.m. in the middle of the night. That's easier for me to do than me starting work by maybe 11, 12 midnight. It will be very, very hard. So, and another reason why I chose this kind of strategy is because I discovered that most times people don't have the leverage of good time at night. Whether you like it or not, the time at night is short, except if you want to deceive yourself. And most times when you say you are going to do TDB, you will discover that the highest you can do is 4 hours. Why? Because if you don't rest yourself well, you have an hangover. Many students will come to class and be sleeping by in the morning. Though they are good, but they have not rested their brain well and they have not rested their body. Many students don't even do exercise. So the blood flow in their body is not engaged enough to be able to perform the extra work they are going through. While we were in school, there was this lady in civil engineering. She always took energy drink. Well, for me then it was a sign that she had money. Because if you don't have money, where will you get energy drink from? Even to buy a coffee. So yeah, she drinks energy drinks a lot. I hope she has stopped now because energy drinks are not good for the health. So, but obviously that was our own way of keeping alert and ensuring she does what is right. So your strategy must be apt. First, a strategy for yourself. You must understand what works for you. Then the second is a strategy for the system. A strategy for the system. First, a strategy for yourself, a strategy for the system, a strategy for the season. So a strategy for a particular season of your life. For example, things might not be easy all the time. You might struggle financially. You might struggle with your relationships. What is the strategy for yourself? So for the season. A strategy for distractions and other focus. Because as you grow in life, you begin to have distractions and other things that tend to divert your focus. One of the reasons why I know now that many students are obviously distracted by what is not supposed to be is because I have done I've done one master's coursework. I had completed a second master's. I'm almost completing a third master's. And in the first instance, I was making money on my own. I had a business I was running, and yet I made a first class in my semesterial. In the second master's, I also made a first class. And during the period where I was doing the second master's, I was married. I had children. In fact, in the midst of my coursework, my wife had to go home during the second semester because she just wanted me to focus. So we created a strategy for me to be able to focus because obviously I was not having time for her. I needed to stay in school most days and read till like 10 p.m. before I go home. So, and it's not going to be healthy to keep her around. So in the third master's, I already had 2 children, and I still made the first class semester. In the second semester, maybe I fell out, and working towards the situation where by the time I'm going to finish my thesis, I would be back to my first class. So that's how life is. Then, if you who is not supposed to be distracted by girls, distracted by the need to make money, if you cannot pull this string together and adjust your strategy to make sure you are successful and you are excellent, there is a problem. So there are many distractions. Yes, you want to make money, you want to do this, you want to do that. But in all those distractions is your capacity to be excellent. Don't forget, we started this with, if you don't have capacity for where you are, you cannot be there. So you have the capacity and you have the ability to learn what others are learning in that environment and be successful. That's why you're there. So have the strategy for yourself. Know yourself. Know what works best for you. If what works best for you is studying during the day, fine, study. If what works best for you is studying during the night. But I always ask the question, what will you use your day for? Many people use their day to do other things that are not necessary. Visit friends that will not remember you in your days, in your down days and terrible times. So why don't you love yourself? Let there be a strategy for self-love, that I put myself in the driver's seat and I am first in what I am doing. Now, a strategy for the system. There is a system that governs every environment. There is a strategy for how to relate with every lecturer. There is a strategy for how to relate with every course. You cannot relate with a course that has many calculations like the course that has many theories. So while you are reading the course that has many theories, you are practicing the course that has many calculations. While you are taking your time to understand the principles that the teacher that is teaching you theories are teaching you, you must pay rapt attention to understand the principles behind the calculations for the teachers that are teaching you calculations. You cannot just sit there and say, I have gotten the note. I have written the note. What next? You must be able to study. And you must give yourself to studying daily. Daily study is important. You must be able to study daily. You must be able to give yourself to studying as you should. So then the strategy for the season. For example, it is not every time you'll be in class. It is not every time during your academic period that you'll be in school. There is a strategy for the season. For example, there is a strategy for when you are in school and there is a strategy for when you are on break. I tell my engineering students, I even introduce them early. Some will say, this man is stressing us. No. At 200 level, you should be able to know how to do MATLAB, how to do SolidWorks, how to work on little designs. Not just going to class and reading and passing. No. Make yourself relevant for the industry so that wherever you go for your IT, they will be able to say, yes, this boy is good, this girl is excellent. And you will not just do things anyhow. You will not just say things anyhow. You position yourself for the best there is. And that position starts from the strategy you create for the season. There must be a strategy for a particular season of your life. You don't just attend to things as they come. You must harness every time as though you have ownership of it. And the truth is, we have ownership of it. Because the last time I checked, the earth belongs to everybody. So that's why we can buy lands. That is why you can build house. If today you decide to start a company, even if you are 10 years old and you have the resources to start the company, nobody will stop you from starting. Because it's your resources. And the strategy you put in at utilizing those resources matters the most. I remember in 300 level when I was going to make a first class again, my lecturer told me, Wale, you don't need textbooks. Yet in 200 level, I had gotten textbooks because I needed to understand the basic principle of whatever they were doing in the class. The 1,500 seater, everybody there and things like that. So now when I look at my students, that lectures are stressing me because I have to do because we don't want to join everybody together. They now split a particular lecture into 3. So I teach one department today, another department tomorrow. We never had that luxury. And yet, this generation has the luxury and they cannot be successful. What's the problem? There is a fundamental problem, and the problem is the problem of strategy. Your strategy determines your strain on success, your hold on success. So if you engage the right strategy, you will be able to hold on to success for as long as possible. So assume today that the strategy you are putting before has been a poor strategy. You have just been waiting for exams to come before you study. No, that strategy has to stop. The right strategy is to read every day as though you are having exams tomorrow, and you study. Now, in the next section, we'll be looking at the right connections and the right resources. And I hope that this will come as soon as possible. I am believing that we would have updates weekly. However, we would have a Google Meet section that will be able to answer critical questions. So if you are having questions, send those questions in, and our Google Meet sections will be aimed towards answering those questions. I am glad you have been part of this, and I hope that you have learned a lot. Thank you very much for connecting, and I do not take your presence for granted. Like, share, and subscribe to this channel. Share to as many people as possible, and be a part of promoting and being someone else's link to their success and excellence in life. Thank you so much. I am Joel Adewale Ajayi.